I can already feel my throat starting to tear out, so let's get this over with. Hello there, everybody. This is CwapTheNintendin here, and welcome to another episode of Platinum Impressions. Today, we are going to be talking about a game that I've heard about a lot, but I've never played, and it's been nearly 20 years. Let's talk about Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1. So, Metal Gear Solid. Let's get this checklist out of the way. Checklist 1, missed out on because Nintendo. Check. B, heard a lot about this game and knew some of the music because of Super Smash Bros. Check. And C, why am I even explaining myself? Point is, I never really played this game until now, so let's get it over with. But before I talk about that though, I feel like I should go over my overall thoughts on Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, since I never really technically beat it. Yeah, it's like I said, I never really technically beat this game, since I'm really only like 65% into it. But people told me that I don't really need to beat Metal Gear 2 since MGS1 and Metal Gear 2 are so similar to each other. But I can still say this. For me being essentially 60-65% into it, I can honestly say it really is a step up from Metal Gear 1 in terms of both story and gameplay. Like, stealth has taken a lot more precedence in a way. Like, you can crawl, you can still, shoot out dudes, Everything has been improved, but it's still, again, it's a guide game, meaning that you have to look up where you need to go and what you need to do. But whatever problems that were present in the first game are mostly gone, and I really enjoyed what I played. Like, dang, you could really see where Kojima's roots start to flourish. So, will that mean anything when I start tackling the story of Metal Gear Solid? Probably nothing. So here's the story. In simple terms, Metal Gear Solid is the chronological sequel to Metal Gear 2. It's the futuristic year of 2005, and the government's called in to investigate terroristic activity in Alaska's Shadow Moses Island. That's the place from Smash Brothers, guys. Solid Snake's brought out of his early retirement by Colonel Campbell from the last game to sneak around the island along with his support, McDonald Miller from the last game, and newcomers Mei Ling aka Breast Girl, Naomi Hunter in briefing, and Natasha Romanenko, the weapons specialist via codec. They're called in because Snake and Campbell's former unit, Foxhound, is planning some shit that involves a new Metal Gear called Rex, who can, say it with me if you played the first two games, launch nuclear shit. I have taught you well. On top of that, it turns out that Campbell's niece Meryl is also on the island and needs to be found when she, of course, has her own agenda. AKA she's been sent in there as well. And Snake and her eventually team up in order to stop the new Metal Gear. And that's basically all that I'm going to tell you about that. Now, this is a Hideo Kojima game. And you know what that means, even early on. 4 hours of cutscenes in total. From the get-go, you can check out your briefing from the main menu for about a good 30-35 minutes, going into insane detail about, Snake's mission, even before getting to the first second of gameplay. So, yeah. And if you're worried about, not playing Metal Gear 1 and 2, Kojima's got you covered. Under Special, you can look up previous operations, where you can look up the events of Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, just to get some supplementary reading on before even starting tackling the game. And also, I thought Holly's wife's name was Holly, not Hori. Oh boy. Now, the overall plot isn't bad, mind you. In fact, it's actually pretty damn great and engaging for the time period that it came out, with, the usual lots of twists and turns along the way. It's just that the fact that this is your first time playing, you better get ready to sit your ass down through those cutscenes, because some of them can go on for a little more than 10 minutes long. I like to pinpoint two cases. After the first and third boss fights, you are loaded with plot for about 10 minutes before eventually going back to the game. So just be ready to listen in to that good old-fashioned plot. But with that said, These characters are actually very, very enjoyable. Even though over half of Snake's dialogue consisting him asking questions, his morals and motives for the things that he does in the plot do make him more of a 3D protagonist than his two-dimensional self. Learning more about, Snake's codec buddies isn't really required, but after every major event, you can see what they have to say about the current situation, which is actually very, very neat. And in one instance where you have to escape from a cell, you get to learn a lot about Naomi's past, which is really interesting to learn. Like, there's even a point in time where you can where even though Natasha doesn't really add a whole lot to the plot, she does have an amazing insight that you can listen to for about 10 minutes before moving on at one point. Like, geez, that's a lot. That's really something to think about. And trust me, that's gonna be a theme for the series, believe you me. The villains from the Foxhound are actually a lot of fun too, particularly Psycho Mantis. Psycho Mantis? I can't stop saying with that. But yeah, Psycho Mantis, the psychic who can read and control minds. His boss fight I'll get into later, but goddamn is it the best with his design, his voice, and the obliteration of the fourth wall. Liquid Snake, who is the leader of the Foxhounds, is a very big ham, hamming it up in those final cutscenes with him, but he's the enjoyable kind of ham, He is very, very enjoyable. The voice acting is also very impressive for the time. Finally, these characters are given a voice. And even though a different VA voices Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5, I can't imagine Snake not voiced by Dave Hayter. He has such a great voice to listen to. Whether it's in Smash Brothers or it's in this game, it's very, very great. This is also a very, very well shot game, given what the PlayStation 1 could do at the time, and goddamn, that production value is amazing. There's one particular moment that I will not spoil, but I have to say, it's probably my favorite cutscene in the game because it's shot and acted so beautifully. Like, it was incredible to see. And this was from a PS1 game. Like, this was after Final Fantasy VII, and even though those cutscenes in that game were great, I honestly say that this beats them out. They were so well done, believe you me. It's almost like I was seeing the cutscenes for Xenoblade Chronicles again. That cinematography was just beautiful. But, either way, those are basically things that you'll want to look out for in the story. Just get ready to set your butt down. But, it's still a very, very engaging plot. It keeps you guessing. It keeps you going. It keeps you wanting to play the game. And that's why I beat it within a weekend. Yeah, I beat it within a weekend because it was just so damn fun. So, here's that gameplay now. So pretty much just like all Metal Gears before it, it's a game where fighting everyone isn't really the way to go. You gotta sneak your way around everyone so that you can get to your objectives. In fact, a lot of elements from Metal Gear 2 return here, which you thought were innovative, but Metal Gear 2 did it first. Such as Snake's ability to crawl into tight spaces and under tables, and a sort of similar radar system. In fact, this is now actually the Soliton radar system, where it's not locked into just screen by screen anymore. Instead, you now get a full idea of where you are. Like, you'll be keeping your eyes out on the Soliton radar for basically the entire thing, because now you can see your enemy's line of vision, as well as stuff. Basically anything you could do in Metal Gear 2, you can do in MGS1. But by far, I think is my biggest improvement overall in MGS1. You can never possibly get lost now. Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 were considered guide games, meaning that without a guide, you would pretty much get lost because the games were very vague on where your objective was. Even if you called upon your codec buddies, I still think it was rather vague, or maybe I just suck at video games. It didn't really also help that the overall layout of the areas in Metal Gear 1 and 2 made it kinda hard to tell where everything was, especially considering the fact that you had key cards and none of the doors were labeled. Here, it's made very clear on where you're supposed to go, because you can simply call your teammates and they'll get valuable info on the current situation. You can talk to You can talk to Colonel Campbell to see where you're going next. You can call Natasha to view all your weapons. Mei-Ling, you can call Mei-Ling to save your game. And you'll eventually even encounter the engineer of Metal Gear Rex, Otacon, who says he'll bring you ammo and rations. Bullshit. In all seriousness though, he's the tech guy who has the tech info on the tech. He's also a weeb too. Kojima knew that weeaboos existed even back then. But either way, your comrades are all very, very useful here, and because of that, there's honestly really no need for a guide at all. And also, the design of the place is actually a whole lot more linear this time around, and, you know, it's very easy to tell where you're supposed to go, so, yeah, pretty damn good. And, you know, if you don't already know, like, what the heck to do or where the heck to go, just call your guys and they'll spell out, you know, what you're supposed to do. Plus, during boss fights, if you happen to die a lot, the same thing sort of happens here. The game lends you a helping hand and tells you how to beat them. I mean, heck, how is anyone supposed to know how to beat Psycho Mantis without help for the first time? I have no idea. And also, speaking of the doors, all the key cards needed to access certain doors stack in levels now. So the doors are clearly marked with the number that you need to access. No more door issues, thank Christ. But man, when you get a game over, oh man. I just love hearing everyone like scream Snake. I just love hearing that. It's so dramatic to the point where it's like, you know, kind of over the top in a way. And speaking of the boss fights, all of them are actually really unique and pretty damn neat. My personal favorite boss fights being Revolver Ocelot, which is a great way to introduce the boss fights. Plus this bit.
You idiot!
Psycho Mantis is also another one of favorite of mine because, again, his fourth wall smashing when he reads your memory card and vibrates your controller is just genius. Even the actual fight with Metal Gear Rex being a good challenge is a really good challenge once you get his pattern down. I can't tell you how hard it was to defeat Vulcan Raven for the second time though. It took me over an hour and I barely had anything. I barely had any rations to heal myself, grenades or Makita missiles to blow him up, and then some. And you know, it's the proper Metal Gear boss fight, you know, stealth is important as well as knowing when to shoot Vulcan Raven, but Jesus. In fact, I think I can actually properly talk about this now. Sometimes if you know you got a tough fight ahead of you, or if you don't know if you got a tough fight ahead of you, you may be limited on your supplies, like limited ammo on weapons or limited amounts of rations to revive or heal yourself. Plus it would have helped out if I found that body armor, but I didn't. I kind of like that because you have limited supplies, meaning that you got to be more careful with not dying, but at the same time, if you're limited, you're going to have a hard time. Again, I don't know, maybe I'm just bad at video games in general, maybe, so. Yeah, basically put, all the boss fights are pretty damn unique and pretty damn good, if I do have to say so for myself. Plus, again, it's that whole bit with the stealth being a bit more important. In fact, if I could argue with that, I think stealth is just as important here as it was in Metal Gear 2. Like, you know, if you get spotted, then you go into the alert phase and then the evasion phase. So, yeah, it's basically the same deal as Metal Gear 2 in a way. In fact, there's actually a whole lot of similarities between the two. I mean, I won't go into them because spoilers, but if you ever played Metal Gear 2 and this, then you're gonna see a lot, and I mean a lot of similar stuff. But the one thing that I do have to complain about, you know, the game itself though, is the fact that you gotta backtrack sometimes. And I know a lot of people don't really like the backtracking in Metal Gear 2, and it's kind of true here as well. There's this one part where you have to, you know, get a sniper rifle in order to defeat Sniper Wolf, who is the sniper of Foxhound. But in story reason, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, okay, here's the basic setup of this right here. Snake and Meryl are basically fighting their way over to the place where Metal Gear is being held, right? So then Sniper Wolf appears out of nowhere, shoots Meryl multiple times, and somehow she still lives. and she's lying on the ground bleeding out. Snake then gets called on by his associates to tell him, hey, you need a sniper rifle, you gotta go back, and Snake's like, okay. So by the time you go back and get the sniper rifle and then you gotta go all the way back up again, Meryl's gone. Good job, guys. Really good job. You did your job. Good job. Colonel, you really care about your niece. Good job. But the other case of backtracking where you have to change the key temperatures in order to deactivate Metal Gear, it's not that bad, honestly. Like, there was a part in Metal Gear 2 where you had to change the key temperature. But honestly, it's not as bad as it is here, from what I've heard. Like, you only have to go back, only a few areas just to go back to it. And honestly, I didn't really have, much trouble with that, to be honest. At all. But, still, it's something. Also, the fact that basically half of Snake's dialogue is basically him asking questions. Like, just listen to these bits that I recorded.
Behind D. What? Metal Gear. It can't be. Revolution. Rex. There are 2 passwords.
The card keys.
Card keys. Baker. The president of Arms Tech. Psycho Mantis. Pentagon. Surgical implants. 2nd floor basement. 2nd floor basement.
Any questions, Snake?
Questions?
You idiot!
Like, you heard that, right? He says 2nd floor basement, twice. Seriously, what the hell? Plus, there's also the fact that, there's a running theme going on where, the Foxhound associates are deliberately withholding information from Snake, and, Snake feels like he doesn't want to be left in the dark. He repeatedly asks Colonel, what are you hiding from me? Don't lie to me. And he's like, and Colonel's like, nah, man, I ain't hiding from you. Nothing at all. It just gets a little bit samey after a while, to be honest. It really does. But, if that were to be my biggest complaint in the game, then, I wouldn't have fun with this game. But, I still have fun with this game, but heck, whatever. It's a video game. On the graphics level, this game holds up surprisingly very well for a PS1 game. I mean, the character models and faces are static as shit. But being able to render a large, detailed 3D environment that wasn't Crash Bandicoot or Final Fantasy VII, it couldn't have been easy, given how cinematic everything is. On the sound direction, the soundtrack is very, very atmospheric in nearly every area that you try to go past. It's also pretty interesting to hear, Cavern and Encounter in their original forms after hearing them so often in Smash Bros. Brawl. The music is really, really good. I can barely remember what those titles are. Because, admittedly, just like my thoughts on Splatoon, they kind of mash together into, an atmospheric blend. But, if that were to be my biggest complaint on the sound direction, then I wouldn't be able to enjoy them. I'm just saying, I only have a few Metal Gear Solid songs on my favorite playlist, including Cavern, Encounter, and the ending theme called The Best Is Yet to Come. Very good. I honestly think it's needless to say at this point, but Metal Gear Solid, everyone was right. It is an absolutely fantastic game. It was very, very impressive for 1998, and it amazingly holds up. Speaking as someone who's finally played this game after nearly 20 years since its release. The story is super engaging, filled with, the politics, the twists and the turns, and everything else you can possibly think of. And it even has that good old Kojima sense of humor. It's a very solid 10 to 12 hour adventure where nearly everything works, and I really only have a few complaints. And even if I got those complaints, this is just another one of those games, pretty much just like my opinions on Kingdom Hearts, where the positives outweigh the negatives in my opinion. If you're going to experience this game, I highly recommend that you get the Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection for the PS3, where you'll get a free download code for this game as well as VR missions. Because Konami was just too great to simply put this into the collection. But, otherwise, you spend around $10 on the PSN, and you'll get yourself a masterpiece. Can't wait to see where the story goes with Metal Gear Solid 2. Bloated with cutscenes. Oh boy. Okay, for the record, I've already played Metal Gear Solid 2. And holy damn. I'm gonna be spending a lot of time on that, you know, Metal Gear Solid 2 story, believe you me, when we go for that next. Either that, or should I do, like, something else? I don't really know. But regardless, I already have the script for Metal Gear Solid 2 planned out, all the footage, you know, recorded. So, yeah. Don't know whether I should do that next, or something else entirely next, who knows. Yeah, I'll eventually decide. Either way, those are my thoughts on Metal Gear Solid. I hope you enjoyed them. And I will see you guys on the next time with more Platinum impressions if I don't have already my next Let's Play already undergoing stuff. See you guys on the next time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.